A grand estate with white walls and green trees stands bathed in bright morning sunlight. 4 children huddled nervously by a large wooden door, listening intently to the conversation inside. Rodenheiner stands stoically beside an older woman while light filters through a nearby window. The knight asks if Bunny is the young lady born on Halloween, surprising the girl. Bunny stares back with wide pink eyes, her face framed by soft blue wavy hair. Rodenheiner kneels, introducing himself as the knight who will serve her from now on. Roden gazes at the young girl and gently asks if she will please come with him. A thumping sound of excitement echoes as Bunny's eyes sparkle with realization at her luck. She processes the weight of her new title and the arrival of her sworn protector. Bunny looks up with a bright expression, thrilled that her secret plans are finally moving. Bunny excitedly tells Roden that her nanny, Luri, had already informed her about this chance. A flashback reveals Luri visiting a very young Bunny during her time in the demon castle. Luri told Bunny it was time to go to the human world for training purposes. Under a snowy night sky, Luri explained that a knight would eventually come for her. Bunny wonders if Roden is the man destined to take her to a place of suckers. A thumping sound marks her excitement as Bunny celebrates Luri's genius in predicting this event. Luri taught Bunny that the world is full of scammers and requires testing with tricks. Bunny hesitates and mentions that she is not actually a noble lady as he suggests. Roden insists that their investigation proves she is a descendant of the Duke of Udea. A sharp gasp sounds as Bunny realizes she is part of a powerful duke's bloodline. Bunny asks for confirmation, wondering if she has truly become a lady of the duchy. A thumping sound follows as Bunny clenches her fists, excited by the prospect of power. Bunny finds it strange that she is being identified as a lady of a human duchy. She questions the situation, noting that she already has a demon mother and father. A thumping sound occurs as Bunny recalls Luri's stories about being adopted by powerful fathers. Luri would enthusiastically read classic children's stories to Bunny to prepare her for human life. Bunny imagines meeting a powerful demon father as part of an incredible and tragic backstory. Bunny seriously considers if she should tell the knight the truth or keep her secret. Luri previously explained that finding a human guardian is necessary to fulfill her ultimate mission. Bunny stands determined to eventually become a magnificent and villainous leader of the demon world. Bunny decides to use the strong duke to her advantage while she grows into power. The girl smirks, planning to use people and then run away once she becomes an adult. Bunny envisions herself as a wealthy demon king, draining the pockets of every human sucker. Roden expresses his happiness that she is pleased and asks again if she will follow him. Delicate yellow flowers and strawberries frame the scene as a new chapter begins for Bunny. A cheerful laugh rings out as Bunny beams with joy over her successful villainous scheme. A thumping sound accompanies the sight of Bunny's large black plush rabbit sitting among stars. A thumping sound echoes as the blue-haired girl hops happily across the orphanage beds. Bunny prepares her essential items, including Mamgomi the bear, Toto the bunny, and a bank. A thumping sound follows as Bunny checks her bag for Luri's secret all-knowing notebook. The leather notebook promises to reveal everything Bunny needs to know for her mission. Bunny and Luri cheer together, celebrating their successful plan to infiltrate the human world. Bunny gives a sweet smile, masking her dark intentions of using the humans for power. A thumping sound of running feet echoes through the hallway as children rush toward Bunny. A thumping sound marks the door opening as someone calls out Bunny's name in distress. A thumping sound of many voices rises as the orphanage children ask if she is leaving. Bunny confirms she is going to the duchy since she is actually a noble lady. The children sob, asking Bunny if she is really abandoning them to survive all alone. The kids tearfully recall how Bunny led their warehouse raids and made delicious sweet potatoes. The boys weep while remembering Bunny's magic touch and the special drinks she made them. Bunny is surrounded by orphans who refuse to let her leave without a fight. The blue-haired girl smirks, thinking about how easily she won over every child in the orphanage. The director kneels before Bunny, adjusting her clothes for the journey to the Duke's grand estate. The older woman softly calls out to Bunny, her expression full of concern for the girl's future. Bunny wonders if the director has also fallen for her charms as the woman looks on affectionately. The director warns Bunny that she must not raid any warehouses when she arrives at the estate. The director sternly explains that the guards will capture her and sell her into slavery for raiding. Bunny dejectedly agrees to behave herself, her shoulders slumped in disappointment over her restricted plans. A soft, warm smile spreads across the older woman's face as she looks at the bra. The director pulls Bunny into a final, tender embrace and tells the girl to be happy. Bunny brightly promises to make the woman rich once she becomes a great demon king in the future. Bunny excitedly rushes toward the waiting carriage while the estate gates loom large in the background. The orphanage director stands by the gate, waving a bittersweet farewell as the carriage begins to pull away. A rhythmic clatter sounds as the carriage wheels turn and Bunny swings her legs in excitement inside. Bunny dreams of her future status as both a duchess and a powerful demon king while traveling. The carriage passes under the bright morning sky as it reaches the outskirts of the Grand Territory. The journey continues toward the heart of the impressive and sprawling Udea ducal estate. Bunny gasps in awe as she gets her first real look at the magnificent estate through the window. The girl is dazzled by the white, fancy, and sparkly architecture surrounding her as they arrive. The grand white estate of the Udea Duchy stands majestic under the clear, bright blue sun. The knight informs Bunny that they have officially entered the grounds of the Udea ducal estate. Bunny spots several people in white robes and watches them with curious, wide eyes from the carriage. Bunny points out the group of robed figures standing near the entrance of the estate grounds. The knight identifies the figures as members of the temple, sparking the young girl's interest. A thumping sound echoes as Bunny freezes in shock upon hearing the temple's mission is exterminating demons. A pink-haired girl panics alone after receiving unexpected and devastating annulment papers for her engagement. The girl tries to find a single silver lining amidst her mounting frustration and loneliness. She recalls that her grandfather is still supporting the side of the family led by Charlize. An older man with reddish hair and a goatee sternly asks the girl to behave herself. The man declares that he has no intention of allowing the engagement annulment to ever proceed. Grandfather orders her to investigate the Duke's sudden repayment and maintain a tight leash on her fiancé. The pink-haired girl realizes that maintaining her engagement will be a difficult and taxing struggle. She dreads meeting the character from the story who is fated to eventually take her life. The overwhelming stress of her situation feels like a heavy weight pressing down on her heart. The scene shifts quietly to the inside of a brightly lit and elegant room within the mansion. The pink-haired girl nervously fidgets with her crystal necklace while lost in her own deep thoughts. A pile of letters sits on the table, representing the complex web of nobility and broken promises. Her hand reaches out to grab one of the perfectly clean envelopes from the stack on the table. She notes that Askin returned her letters clean, suggesting their relationship isn't completely destroyed just yet. The girl prepares to take action, hoping to resolve her current social and financial debts immediately. A maid with brown hair stands nearby, waiting to assist the young lady with her various requests. The maid calls out to her lady urgently, catching the pink-haired woman's attention with a start. The girl's eyes widen as she processes the news that the Emperor has suddenly arrived to see her. Roxydene is introduced as the Tyrant Emperor and Charlize's brother from the world's original story. The Emperor's reputation for madness and obsession is reflected in his dark and looming presence. The pink-haired girl is terrified to learn that the bloodthirsty tyrant from the story is her actually brother. Fearing discovery, the girl orders her maid to tell the Emperor she is busy and cannot see him. The maid hesitates to speak just as the Emperor's voice cuts her off from across the room. Roxydene enters the room unannounced and greets his sister with a chillingly charming and confident smile. A sharp gasp sounds as the girl trembles, confused by the Emperor's choice of the title princess. The pink-haired girl snaps at the man, telling him not to call her by that name. The chibi girl realizes her body is reacting like Charlize's, wondering if her mind is merging. She recalls Charlize's memories of demanding to be called a lady as the sole Ausbite's successor. Her eyes widen in shock as a sharp blade is suddenly pointed directly at her neck. The black-haired man asks if he needs to teach her a lesson while she labels him a psychopath. She wonders why the original story described his relationship with Charlize as being not that bad. He dismisses the threat as a joke, leaving her outraged that he finds pointing swords funny. The man suddenly flops face down onto the furniture, complaining that his body feels very stiff. She is annoyed by his behavior and feels an instinctive urge to punch him in the face. He beckons her closer, claiming he has something seriously important that he needs to tell her. A flashback shows a brown-haired woman at a computer shouting for Yoon Ji-hoo to come over. The woman continues to yell urgently for Ji-hoo to hurry up because something huge has happened. The woman with the short brown hair turns around with an annoyed expression to ask what happened. Back in the mansion, the Emperor lazily asks her to close the curtains and lights for his nap. She is frustrated that his important talk was just a request for a nap, noting he is exactly like her brother from the modern world. She snaps at him to do it himself, asking if he is missing a hand, which shocks him. He is stunned that she called him you, while she compares his obsession with etiquette to Yoon Ji-hoon. She repeatedly calls him you, shouting that he needs to act like a brother before getting the title. He stops her with a cold look, asking if she is finally finished with her long talking. She glares back, questioning if he would even listen if she had more things to say. A dark aura surrounds him as she wonders what is wrong with his strange, pained expression. She watches him stumble and realizes that his legendary madness might be about to trigger. The black-haired man clutches his head as she fears the original story's madness is finally manifesting. She is bewildered that his madness triggered just because she talked back, questioning his weak mental health. He groans in pain, wondering why his condition had to flare up at this specific moment. She looks down at her glowing crystal necklace as she reacts to his sudden distress. A blinding flash of light erupts as she is thrown backward, leaving her confused and startled. The man's foot remains planted firmly on the floor as the mysterious light begins to fade. He stands silently in the room while the dark, smoky energy slowly dissipates from around him. In her chibi form, she panics and wonders if she just accidentally killed the story's tyrant. She stares ahead with a serious expression, trying to process the aftermath of the magical outburst. Looking at the glowing necklace in her hands, she realizes she can silence a tyrant instantly. A decorative floral panel announces that the current situation requires a bit of background explanation. A silhouette reveals that the former emperor fell deeply in love with the lady of the Ausbite family. Narrative boxes explain the imperial family made a promise because the lady was the sole ducal successor. A firm handshake between two men in formal attire signifies the sealing of a very important agreement. The story explains that Roxy Dean grew up in the palace while Charlize was raised as the Lee. A dark silhouette explains that the imperial beast blood manifested much too strongly within young Roxy Dean. A flashback shows young Charlize crying while young Roxy Dean clutches his head in a dark, painful aura. A kind, pink-haired woman smiles warmly and promises she will make the boy gentle. In the present, she looks at her necklace and realizes what making him gentle actually meant. The memory of a mother's touch successfully exorcises his madness, leaving him feeling touched and apologetic. Roxy Dean looks down with soft, glowing eyes, appearing completely changed and full of genuine regret. The chibi emperor hunches over in shame, wondering how he could ever apologize for his behavior. He initially snaps at her for her actions, but she internally invokes the mother keyword to calm him. He immediately transforms into a sweet, sparkling chibi version of himself and apologizes for surprising his sister. He feels physically ill from the sudden personality shift, while she realizes how to control him. He calls her his lovely sister Liz while she continues to use the mother keyword mentally. The emperor collapses in a heap of despair while she stands over him with a calm expression. She smirks and warns him not to mess with her, while he blushes and tells her to stop. A sudden, loud shout for someone named Noah echoes through the room, ending the tense encounter. A blue swirling portal opens as the black-haired man crouches low on the floor. The blue-haired man addresses the black-haired man, calling him Your Majesty with great concern. Charlize snaps at her brother for turning her room into a mess while she thinks about seeing him now. Charlize identifies Noah Chendice as the second male lead while he asks if the Empress told Roxy Dean anything. Roxy Dean tells Noah to stop nagging because he found a way to suppress his madness, which shocks Noah. A field of peach-colored flowers fills the view as a soft no echoes out. Charlize gazes ahead calmly while her intricate pink crystal necklace rests against her chest. A tiny chibi version of Noah shouts in complete disbelief and shock at the sudden news. A woman with white hair and bright blue eyes smiles with a confident and mischievous expression. A woman wearing glasses and a sun hat smiles warmly against a bright blue background. Noah asks if the emperor is joking while Roxy Dean, clutching his head, orders him to do it again. Charlize narrows her eyes with a knowing smirk as she watches the chaos unfold before her. Charlize playfully calls herself Mommy, while Roxy Dean happily calls her his sweet little sister, leaving Noah speechless. The three characters stand together in their chibi forms as a dizzying energy fills the elegant room. A small laugh sounds as a pair of blushing lips curve into a smile. Noah laughs and promises to investigate the situation while Roxy Dean furiously orders him to stop laughing immediately. Roxy Dean looks away with a serious expression and decides to postpone all of today's imperial business. A sudden clap sounds as Charlize flinches while a hand reaches out toward her glowing necklace. Roxy Dean warns his sister not to go see her pathetic fiancé as he disappears through the portal. A blinding flash of light erupts as Charlize is left standing alone in her quiet room. Charlize admits she is tired, but desperately thinks she must meet her fiancé or she will die. The sun shines brightly over the grand architecture of the impressive Ausbite ducal estate. Charlize wakes up in her large bed, clutching her aching head while complaining about the pain. A box explains she fell asleep after Roxy Dean left while she resolves to see Askin today. Charlize orders her maid to get her ready to go out, and the maid asks for their destination. Now dressed up, Charlize thinks about her headache and wonders if she overthought things the previous day. Charlize turns to her brown-haired maid and asks if there is any medicine available for her headache. A blonde maid rushes into the room shouting for her lady, which startles the pink-haired woman. The blonde maid holds out a glass bottle and nervously asks if the lady would like it. The maid explains she brought medicine for the lady's headache, while Charlize notes how terrified the girl is. The blonde maid continues to explain that the medicine is very effective for relieving painful headaches. A quick swish sounds as the small glass medicine bottle is presented with care. Charlize reaches out her hand to accept the bottle of medicine from the blonde maid. Charlize wonders if the maid would dare poison her, but decides she has nothing left to lose. The pink-haired lady looks back at her blonde maid with a kind and warm smile. Charlize offers a gift to the maid, telling her to keep it, which leaves the girl speechless. A maid informs Charlize the carriage is ready, while the other servants whisper about how jealous they are. The maids watch in awe as Charlize walks away, thinking about how incredible their ladyship looks today. The scene transitions through a serene garden filled with soft, light purple and blue leaves. Charlize arrives at the entrance of another grand and imposing white stone ducal building. Charlize gazes at the building and thinks about how the family is currently struggling with heavy debt. An elderly butler and a woman in brown bow low and greet the noble lady upon her arrival. The butler looks down apologetically and informs Charlize that the Duke is currently away from the estate. Charlize realizes they want her to leave but insists that she must see Duke Lamut this very day. The staff is shocked by her politeness while the maid apologizes profusely for the Duke's absence. Charlize stands firm and orders them to show her inside so she can wait for the Duke's return. The butler tries to apologize again as Charlize sits on a green couch while tea is served. The gray-haired man explains they have strict orders not to receive any guests while the Duke is away. Chibi Charlize stares at a literal brick wall while wondering if her words are even being heard. The butler continues to beg the lady to leave just as a voice asks about the noise. Ben, the Duke's aide, offers a formal greeting to the pink-haired noble lady. Ben informs the lady that the Duke is currently away from the estate. A quick click sounds as Charlize sets down her teacup while being asked to leave. Charlize looks toward the aide with a soft, gentle smile amidst a floral background. Ben questions her hidden intentions while Charlize denies planning any trouble during her visit. Ben admits they cannot force her to leave but warns her about staying. Ben bluntly warns that her continued presence will only make the Duke despise her more. Charlize sighs wearily and finally agrees to leave the room as Ben watches intently. Standing amongst vibrant blue flowers, she decides she will simply wait for him outside. The afternoon sun shines as the staff whispers about her waiting for several hours. Two maids gossip about her presence in the garden, wondering what she is doing. The maids scurry away quickly, terrified of getting caught in any potential noble conflict. Ben sighs deeply, lamenting the difficult life of a struggling servant caught between nobles. Charlize sits elegantly on a wooden bench, looking serene as the wind catches her hair. In her chibi form, she happily enjoys the warm sunlight and the cool, refreshing breeze. The sun begins to set as Charlize wakes with a start, blinking and confusion. Panicked, the chibi lady realizes she accidentally fell asleep while waiting on the garden bench. Looking up at the darkening estate, she wonders if her fiancé has finally returned home. She resolves that she cannot waste any more time just sitting and waiting around. A light tap sounds as her shoes hit the stone while she explores the path. The chibi guards panic as Charlize wanders off, complaining about the lack of directions. She arrives at a beautiful sunlit building that she does not recognize from her memories. Charlize gazes at a flower-filled room, completely unsure of where she has ended up. She notes how meticulously the room is maintained despite not knowing its specific purpose. A faint sound catches her attention, causing her to turn around with an inquisitive look. Her eyes widened in shock as she spots something unexpected within the quiet, sunlit room. A bundle of flowers falls to the floor as someone gasps in sudden, startled fear. Charlize looks on in surprise as she comes face to face with a young, pale girl. A beautiful girl with long silver hair and deep blue eyes stands before her. Trembling, Charlize recognizes the girl as Arya Lamut, the younger sister of her fiancé, Askin. A promotional message announces the chapter's availability while a character stands in the shadows. The Grand Ducal estate glows under the orange hues of a beautiful, warm sunset. The rhythmic thud of hooves sounds as a horse and carriage arrive at the entrance. Ben welcomes the master home while appearing nervous about the current state of affairs. The silver-haired Duke Askin asks his aide if everything was peaceful during his absence. Ben hesitates to answer, clearly struggling to find the right words to explain the situation. Fast-paced steps echo through the courtyard as someone rushes toward the returning Duke. The butler shouts for the Duke's attention while appearing completely breathless and terrified. The butler frantically claims that the lady has done something terrible to the Duke's sister. Dark, thorny vines and blood-red splatters fill the view, signaling a moment of grave danger. Looking at Arya, Charlize recalls the girl's distinctive silver hair and striking blue eyes. Narratives describe Arya as a sickly girl, while Charlize remembers her own past cruelty. A flashback reveals the original Charlize mocking the young, silver-haired girl for her plain clothing. Present-day Charlize is horrified to realize she used to harass this poor innocent child. The trembling girl tries to offer a formal greeting while Charlize internally begs her to stop. Charlize worries that the girl's fragile health might fail if she continues to push herself. Arya stutters through a greeting before she begins to lose consciousness from the immense stress. Charlize shouts for help in a panic as Arya collapses onto the garden floor. A thunderous shout for order rings out as Duke Askin arrives at the scene. Charlize realizes with dread that she is meeting her fiancé under the worst possible circumstances. Chibi Charlize panics internally, terrified that everyone will believe she is the one who harmed Arya. Duke Askin sternly orders Ben to take Arya to her room immediately and summon a doctor. A man carries the unconscious silver-haired girl away while the aide watches the situation with concern. Askin turns his cold, sharp gaze toward Charlize and addresses her formally by her family title. Askin claims he endured her past cruelties for a reason, recalling the original Charlize's wicked behavior. A dark, swirling energy emphasizes his declaration that he cannot overlook this recent incident so easily. The silver-haired duke stands silhouetted against the garden, radiating a cold and unforgiving noble aura. Askin confronts Charlize, asking if she dared to harm Arya despite knowing his fierce protective nature. Charlize pleads her innocence while Askin accuses her of lying to retaliate for the proposed annulment. Askin reflects on his endurance, noting he stayed because he borrowed money from her family. Chibi Charlize laments her situation while Askin declares her atrocities toward Arya have finally crossed lines. Askin turns his back on her, stating that this conflict cannot be resolved by his endurance alone. Charlize's hand reaches out desperately as she realizes she must speak before he leaves her behind. Charlize begs for his trust, suggesting he ask Arya the truth once the girl finally wakes up. The two stand in the garden as autumn leaves drift past, a heavy silence falling between them. Delicate purple flowers bloom against a soft background, marking a quiet and somber moment of transition. Charlize clutches her chest as a sharp, sudden pain radiates from her heart with a heavy throb. System warnings remind her that she will die if the engagement breaks or her possession is discovered. Doubled over in intense agony, Charlize resolves that she cannot afford to back down from this confrontation. Narrowing her red eyes, Charlize realizes she must resort to petty methods to ensure her own survival. Charlize demands the full return of all money lent during their engagement if he truly wants to leave. Askin is stunned by her demand, while Ben tries to dismiss her outburst as a mere tantrum. The silver-haired duke stares at the pink-haired woman with a mixture of shock and growing disbelief. As Charlize calls out his name, Askin begins to turn away to end their tense conversation. A sudden thud sounds as her shoe catches on a rock, causing the lady to stumble forward. A startled whoa escapes her lips as she loses her balance and falls toward the departing duke. Charlize squeezes her eyes shut in terror, bracing for the inevitable impact of hitting the hard ground. A quick thud sounds as Askin catches her securely in his arms amidst a shimmering floral aura. Charlize looks up at him with wide, startled eyes, completely stunned by his sudden and firm intervention. Askin asks if she is hurt, specifically her ankle, while she stammers that she is perfectly okay. Askin admits he couldn't just watch someone fall, while Chibi Charlize notes his incredibly upright nature. Askin questions why she tried to stop him, but Charlize claims it was not anything of importance. Askin's gaze lingers as Charlize thinks about her sincere desire to finally get along with her fiancé. Framed by vibrant red roses, Charlize looks at him with intensity and declares that she is serious. A sharp swish sounds as the Duke takes a firm step forward, ending their brief, intimate moment. Askin orders Ben to escort her, leaving the brown-haired aide confused about their exact final destination. Askin coldly commands that the lady be escorted back to the Alsbite estate without any further delay. The scene transitions to the moonlit interior of the grand estate, appearing quiet and still at night. Askin walks through the halls, reflecting on the limited time remaining for him to repay his debt. Askin considers a mysterious, hooded collaborator who recently approached him with a secret and tempting offer. Inside the bedroom, Arya wakes up and calls for her brother, while the doctor watches her closely. Askin enters the room with a quick swish of his cape and calls out to his sister. A chibi flashback shows the siblings happily chatting together during a much more peaceful and joyful time. Arya reaches out to hold her brother's hand, gently telling him to calm his worried heart down. The silver-haired girl looks up with a soft and kind expression as she addresses her older brother. Arya firmly tells her brother that the pink-haired lady did not do anything bad to her today. A memory of Charlize's desperate plea to ask the girl for the truth resurfaces within Askin's mind. Askin looks thoughtful, wondering if Charlize simply hasn't had the chance to commit any wicked acts yet. Askin expresses his relief that his sister is unharmed while Ben smiles warmly in the background. The bright morning sun illuminates the impressive architecture of the ducal estate under clear blue skies. Aide Ben addresses the shirtless, silver-haired Duke Askin from the shadows of the room. Ben apologizes for the early hour while delivering urgent news to a questioning Askin. Askin looks forward as Ben suggests he should see the current situation for himself. A set of blue flowers blooms delicately beside the silver-haired Duke's muscular frame. The scene lingers on the vibrant blue blossoms surrounding the Duke's powerful presence. The Duke is informed that the view is visible from his current vantage point. Askin and Ben look through the ornate window at the unexpected sight outside. Clad in a dark vest, Askin stares in disbelief at the lady's surprising behavior. A red flag bearing a gold crest waves proudly over the Grand Ducal estate. A steady hand holds a delicate porcelain cup filled with a warm, amber-colored tea. A collection of luxury vanity items sits arranged on a tray in the garden. Charlize sits elegantly in a garden chair, calmly enjoying tea amidst the lush greenery. Askin covers his face while Ben explains that Charlize insists on staying in the garden. Askin recalls Charlize's ultimatum regarding the debt and her refusal to agree to the annulment. Ben tries to soothe the Duke, who remains deeply stressed by the lady's persistence. Askin walks away in a huff while the aide continues to call out to him. A servant panics and drops his drink as Askin makes a stern, demanding gesture. Askin orders Ben to bring a specific document at once, and the aide quickly complies. Writing with a quill, Askin plans to weaponize the debt, annulment penalties, and interest. A mysterious hooded figure smiles while offering to help the Duke as a strategic partner. Askin hands a rolled letter to a black-haired aide demanding its immediate delivery. Narratives describe how the villainous Charlize has begun living outdoors in front of the estate. Chibi Charlize tries to reassure a weeping maid about her unusual decision to camp outside. A tray of fresh strawberries sits untouched as someone orders the situation be left alone. Charlize smiles triumphantly, reminding Askin of his earlier permission for her to do as she pleased. 3 days have passed since the start of the lady's bizarre outdoor residency at the estate. Chibi Charlize explains her comfortable camping life involving a luxury carriage and a helpful magician. Charlize notices her fiancé glaring from the bushes and wonders if her life is in danger. Sunlight filters through the leaves as the pink-haired lady remains serene amidst the garden's flowers. Charlize contemplates a beneficial proposal, but worries about the lack of trust between her and Askin. A brown-haired maid with freckles rushes toward her lady with an urgent, worried look. The maid warns of approaching rain while the pink-haired lady looks up in mild surprise. A flash of lightning startles the maid as she realizes her grandmother's weather prediction was wrong. The maid panics as the sky darkens and a sudden heavy downpour begins to soak them. A soaked Charlize suggests returning to the carriage while her maids scream in sudden terror. Heavy rain lances down through the dark sky, obscuring the view of the grand estate. Inside the carriage, a message states that 2 maids have gone to seek further assistance. Susan apologizes for her earlier remarks while begging the lady to wait for the magician's arrival. The maid laments her lack of preparation for the sudden weather change while Charlize watches her. Charlize kindly questions why Susan is taking the blame for something as unpredictable as the rain. Chibi Susan frets over the lady's soaked state while Charlize remains surprisingly calm and collected. Droplets fall from Charlize's pink hair as she reflects silently on the maid's constant apologies. Susan looks on with a sad, guilty expression, clasping her hands together in deep worry. Charlize recalls a past life memory of a manager scolding her for a lack of ownership. Charlize tells Susan to stop apologizing for things that are beyond her control or responsibility. A warm and gentle aura surrounds Charlize as she shows unexpected kindness to her staff. Susan's eyes sparkle with admiration as she finds herself moved by her lady's new persona. Charlize reassures the shivering maid that the magicians will surely handle everything once they arrive. The hem of the lady's blue dress is heavy with water as the storm continues outside. A sudden, sharp knock sounds against the door, startling both the lady and the maid. Susan asks who is at the door after a sudden, sharp knock sounds from outside the carriage. Arya appears under a blue umbrella, asking if they are all right despite the heavy rain falling. A serene arrangement of white flowers and blue leaves creates a quiet moment amidst the storm. Charlize is shocked to see Arya outside, questioning why the girl came into the lashing rain. Chibi Charlize panics at the thought of being blamed if the girl collapses again today. Arya looks up in surprise as a hand holds an umbrella over her small frame. Huddling together for warmth, the 3 women find a brief moment of shared, shivering comfort. Charlize questions why Arya came out, startling the girl with the directness of her inquiry. Arya is confused by the formal way Charlize is suddenly choosing to speak to her. Charlize calmly explains that she is speaking formally because Arya is her fiancé's younger sister. Arya admits she felt responsible for the lady staying outside in the garden for days. Charlize dismisses the guilt, but Arya claims she was only surprised when she fainted before. Arya looks down, noting that Charlize has not done anything wrong during this current encounter. Charlize softly agrees, though she remains mindful of the weight of her previous actions. Arya admits she doesn't think Charlize is bad, making Charlize's chibi guilty conscience react wildly. Closing her eyes, Charlize urges the girl to remember her past behavior before trusting her. Charlize notices Arya shivering intensely and realizes the girl is becoming dangerously cold and wet. Framed by blue roses, Charlize regrets making Arya faint before and resolves to help her. Raindrops fall as Charlize observes how the girl's clothes and hair are completely soaked through. Charlize wraps a garment around the shivering girl, who thanks her while noting Charlize is wet. A loud sound interrupts as Charlize tries to fix the girl's tangled hair with a smile. Both Charlize and Arya look toward the door in shock as someone enters with a bang. A powerful shout of the girl's name echoes through the carriage, filled with intense worry. Askin appears at the entrance, his face contorted with anger and fear for his sister. Shouting for Arya again, the silver-haired Duke prepares to intervene in the perceived dangerous situation. Chibi Charlize trembles in fear, realizing her fiancé is operating under a massive and terrible misunderstanding. Askin reaches in to pull his sister away as a Chibi Charlize screams in absolute shock. Ignoring his sister's protests, Askin demands they let go and lifts the girl into his arms. Arya reaches back toward Charlize, calling out to the lady as she is carried away. Desperate to explain, Charlize leans out of the carriage door and begs Askin to listen. A sharp sound occurs as her white high-heeled shoe slips on the wet carriage step. Charlize falls violently from the carriage, landing hard on the muddy ground in the lashing rain. Susan cries out in alarm while a dazed Chibi Charlize laments the sheer unfairness of it. Askin looks back at the fallen lady with a cold, piercing gaze devoid of any sympathy. A final narrative thought bubble questions the chaotic events unfolding under the dark, rainy sky. Charlize remains on the ground, her pink hair matted with rain as she looks down. A pink-haired man with a beard arrives, stating he came to check on his granddaughter. The grandfather demands to know what Duke Lamute is doing to his beloved granddaughter. Glaring with glowing red eyes, the older man insults Askin for failing his fiancé duties. The grandfather shouts in a fury, accusing the Duke of leaving the lady on the floor. Askin stares back with a cold shadow over his face, mentioning the annulment papers. The grandfather smiles with a sinister edge, taunting the Duke to try and repay the debt. Under the umbrella, the grandfather suggests they should marry if the debt is too high. His expression turns malicious as he plots to bring the Lemmet family under his control. A hand is raised to stop the argument as a voice calls out to the grandfather. Charlize stands in the rain, refusing an umbrella, and firmly asks her grandfather to listen. The grandfather asks if she is all right, but she insists there has been a misunderstanding. Charlize declares she will not break the engagement and asks her grandfather to stop being harsh. The grandfather scoffs while Charlize reflects on her own perceived immaturity as they depart. Charlize urges the Duke to take Arya back quickly to escape the worsening storm outside. A delicate hand grips the blue handle of an umbrella amidst the falling rain. Askin holds an umbrella over Arya, urging his sister to come in from the storm. The silver-haired Duke's hand tightens around the umbrella as he shields his younger sister. Charlize worries her life is on the line as she tries to avoid an annulment. Askin stands silently beside Arya while his aide Ben looks on with a panicked expression. Rain continues to fall over the lush green gardens surrounding the Grand Ducal estate. The sun begins to shine over the white towers of the magnificent royal palace. A sudden, loud sneeze sounds out, signaling the start of a very rough morning. Tucked under the covers, a sickly Chibi Charlize realizes she has officially caught a cold. Another sneeze echoes as she credits the priest's healing magic for her mild symptoms. While recovering, Charlize wonders if Arya is doing well after their ordeal in the rain. A servant knocks on the door to inform the lady that the Duke is calling. Sunlight streams across a grand, ornate desk inside a quiet and very formal office. The pink-haired grandfather looks over his shoulder with a sharp and calculating red-eyed gaze. A sudden, sharp click sounds as the pink-haired lady steps into the grand office. Charlize stands tall in an elegant green gown, looking poised despite her recent illness. Her grandfather stands before her, wanting to discuss the events that occurred on that day. The older man asks why she pulled the silver-haired girl's hair during their encounter. Charlize insists she was only brushing it, though her chibi conscience feels the weight. The grandfather dismisses the act, claiming he understands her annoyance with the fragile child. He offers to get her a sturdier toy since the current one is easily broken. Charlize is completely stunned, her head going blank from her grandfather's incredibly trashy comments. He praises her for pretending to fall, leaving the pink-haired lady in total confusion. The grandfather explains how they can now collect even more interest from the Lamute family. Clenching his fist, the man plots to keep the Duke bound through their massive get. A dark thought bubble questions if Charlize truly desired to possess the Duke as well. A horrified Chibi Charlize realizes her family is even more insane than she ever imagined. She is appalled that they treat people as profitable objects rather than actual human beings. Panic sets in as Charlize sees her future heading straight toward a dead-end annulment. Forcing a nervous laugh, the lady agrees with her grandfather to maintain her current cover. Claiming she still feels quite unwell, Charlize quickly excuses herself from the uncomfortable meeting. Outside the room, Charlize immediately orders a servant to have her carriage prepared for travel. A white carriage travels down a bright path lined with lemon trees and white flowers. Clad in a dark blue gown, Charlize sits in the carriage looking very determined. She reflects on the Duke's high guard and her urgent need to clear the misunderstanding. A sudden, sharp rattle sounds as the chibi lady feels the carriage hit a bump. Sunlight catches on Charlize's butterfly hair ornament as she ponders her next difficult move. Looking out the window, the pink-haired lady prepares herself for the coming confrontation. A knight knocks on the window, apologizing because the road is blocked by recent rain. The brown-haired man explains the situation while Charlize realizes they have a major problem. The knight suggests an unusual solution to help the lady reach her destination despite the mud. Charlize looks on in disbelief as the man asks her to step on him instead. The ground outside is thick with deep, wet mud that makes walking nearly impossible. Insisting she shouldn't ruin her dress, the knight offers himself as a literal human bridge. Charlize realizes this man is a minor character she never noticed in the original story. The knight explains his extreme devotion as if it were the most natural thing imaginable. Looking at the man, Charlize wonders what kind of life her original self truly lived. Despite the distraction, her main focus remains on finding her fiancé and clearing his name. The carriage wheels remain stuck in the heavy, wet mud as the journey comes to a halt. Charlize rejects the knight's offer and instead orders him to bring workers to fix the road. Under a clear sky, workers move through the gardens, unaware of the lady's watchful gaze. Charlize sits within her carriage, reflecting on the heavy tasks she must complete this morning. A sudden realization startles Charlize, making her pause as she looks out toward the passing scenery. Three curious children peek over the edge of a wagon, their eyes wide with innocent wonder. One boy whispers excitedly about the lady's beauty after they briefly manage to make eye contact. The young boy with a dirt-smudged face remains transfixed, shocked by the elegant lady's presence nearby. Charlize calls out to the man leading the party, asking for his name with calm authority. Bowing low, the brown-haired man identifies himself as Jet, while a respectful, quick bow sounds out. Charlize questions Jet about the territory's condition, and he confirms the widespread devastation following the storm. Jet explains that the flood damage is severe across the impoverished estate, significantly delaying any possible recovery. Pointing toward the wagon, Charlize inquires about the shivering children who have traveled from the Lamut territory. Jet clarifies that the children hitched a ride with the workers just to witness the lady's arrival. Charlize absorbs this news, her expression softening as she realizes the weight of her fiancé's heavy burden. She concludes that Askin is not neglecting his people, but that the situation is simply uncontrollable. A hint of frustration colors Charlize's thoughts as she considers the complexity of the brewing political mess. Charlize reminds herself to play her role perfectly, fearing death should her true identity be discovered. She instructs Jet to expect her frequent returns, signaling her intention to personally oversee the relief efforts. Masking her kindness as selfishness, she asks who would take responsibility if a territory-wide epidemic began. Charlize commands the immediate distribution of food and the repair of buildings to help the flood victims. Dismissing any concerns about cost, Charlize wonders if she is successfully mimicking her original arrogant persona. A triumphant and polished smile graces her lips as she prepares for the next stage of her plan. The intricate details of her dark gown shimmer, contrasting with the vibrant roses blooming in the garden. Sunlight bathes the grand estate in warmth, marking a peaceful transition after the chaotic, rainy night before. Inside the bright conservatory, Charlize rests while her loyal maid Susan stands ready to serve her tea. A sharp, quick click sounds as Charlize sets her cup down, questioning the severity of the Duke's situation. She considers how Askin is desperately trying to secure funds for their engagement's annulment despite his poverty. Charlize suspects a hidden force is helping Askin find the large sum of money required for his freedom. Lost in thought, she tries to recall any powerful organizations from the original story that could assist him. A bead of sweat rolls down Charlize's face as her memory fails to provide any immediate answers. Her concentration is broken by the firm, heavy sound of a man's shoe stepping into the room. Her grandfather's voice booms through the hall, announcing he has heard the news of her recent travels. The pink-haired man enters the conservatory, his presence immediately making the atmosphere feel cold and restrictive. He questions why she used the flood damage as an excuse for her actions that morning. Charlize listens stoically as he mentions her efforts to provide food and water to the suffering people. The older man demands to know the profit she gained, suggesting land deeds or even slave contracts. A horrified chibi Charlize reels at his coldness, realizing her grandfather views all life as a transaction. Noticing her strange expression, the grandfather grows suspicious of her motives for helping the commoners. He accuses her of wasting resources, asking if she truly threw money away without securing any return. Charlize stammers an excuse about a relief donation while her chibi self screams in panicked internal frustration. He scolds her for her lack of judgment, labeling the act of helping others as entirely useless. Furious, the man suggests that breaking her engagement might actually be the best path forward after all. His hand clenches tightly as he decides to send her away to learn the true value of money. The grandfather threatens to choose a new, smarter husband for her, commanding her to wait quietly. He turns to leave, his rigid posture radiating a cold, uncompromising authority over her entire future. The older man dismisses her attempts to speak, asking what more there could possibly be to hear. Charlize's eyes narrow as she decides to confront his ridiculous and heartless view of the world. She boldly claims she only lent the money with interest included, successfully regaining his calculating interest. Pausing, the grandfather admits that the Lamut family still has some use if managed correctly as debt. Charlize realizes her own grandfather is the greatest obstacle to her survival and her current engagement. They lock gazes in a silent battle of wills, both determined to control the unfolding family legacy. Her grandfather asks if she truly believes the Lamut family still holds any value. Charlize looks on intensely as she prepares to answer her grandfather's cold, calculating question. Letting out a sharp laugh, the pink-haired man finds her ruthless attitude highly amusing. He praises Charlize, claiming her cunning behavior proves she truly carries the noble Allsbite blood. Smirking, he notes that her slyness combined with talent will secure their family's eternal power. A heavy thud sounds as the older man begins to exit the grand office room. Turning back, he commands her to present the money once she collects the high-interest loan. The scene fades into a series of dark vertical lines as the heavy doors close. Sunlight filters through the quiet conservatory where tea remains untouched on the ornate table. Charlize tells the maid she is exhausted and demands to be left completely alone now. A quick, sharp click sounds as the lady firmly locks the door behind her mates. Clutching her head in panic, Charlize realizes her attempt to help has caused even more trouble. She defends her decision to assist the suffering people, unable to simply ignore their desperate plight. Shaking with nerves, she worries that she is stuck in the body of a heartless villain. Charlize vows not to live like the cruel villainess she has been reborn as today. Flopping onto the bed, she tries to clear her mind while focusing on her next move. She ponders how she will acquire the massive sum of money her grandfather is expecting soon. Searching for a solution, Charlize wonders if a secret fund exists, but has no one to ask. A sudden, loud swish sounds as a magical portal erupts on the floor before the lady. A blue-haired man urgently calls out to her as he steps through the glowing magic circle. Stunned, a chibi Charlize remains frozen on the bed, completely shocked by the man's sudden appearance. Bowing deeply, the blue-haired man apologizes for the intrusion, citing an emergency that requires her presence. Charlize questions why he arrived alone without Roxadine, mentioning his use of portal magic once again. Noah asks for her understanding and begs her to follow him to deal with the crisis. Panic fills the room as he warns that His Majesty is losing control of himself again. A sudden, violent crash echoes from the high windows of the dark, moonlit castle towers. Terrified guards inside the castle beg for their ruler to calm down and stop his rampage. A black-haired man towers over a cowering servant, his gaze filled with a dark, murderous intensity. The servant pleads for his life while the black-haired man prepares to strike with his sword. A sharp, wet slice sounds as the man's weapon cuts through the air in the darkness. Intervening, Charlize's hand glows with light as she commands the violent man to stop at once. The black-haired man pauses as Noah and Charlize step into the wreckage of the throne room. A heavy clang sounds as the man drops his sword, whispering her name in total disbelief. He smiles warmly at her, identifying the pink-haired lady as his beloved little sister, Liz. The black-haired man excitedly asks if she traveled all this way just to see her brother. Charlize recoils in visible disgust, finding her brother's sudden change in personality to be incredibly creepy. A chibi Charlize trembles in annoyance while her brother watches her with a wide, innocent gaze. The scene shows the rubble of the room as he thanks her for visiting him today. Charlize checks if the servant survived while her brother offers to finish the job for her. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Charlize is startled by her brother's hand reaching toward her. The black-haired man groans, claiming the nauseating situation makes him feel like he might actually barf. A confused chibi interaction follows as the siblings drop their formal honorifics during their heated exchange. Noah asks His Majesty if he is all right, looking on at the pair's highly unusual relationship. The brother asks if Noah brought her, while Noah explains he had no other viable choice. He scolds Noah for endangering her before finally deciding to drop the subject for now. Noah notes that even in a crisis, the ruler's thoughts remain solely on the lady's safety. Turning to her, the black-haired man questions why Charlize is wearing such an unpleasant facial expression. He wears a subtle, dark smile while remarking on his lack of luck regarding his own family. Charlize feels unslitted by his comment, wondering if he is intentionally being rude to her personally. Chibi Charlize wonders if her rich brother could be the solution to her massive financial problems. Charlize beams radiantly, surrounded by lush flowers and strawberries, setting a deceptively cheerful tone. Charlize demands hazard pay from her brother, citing the danger she faced by visiting him. The black-haired man questions why he should provide any financial compensation to the lady. He suggests she seek funds from her wealthy maternal grandfather instead of bothering him for money. The emperor disavows his grandfather, claiming he has no use for a backstabbing relative. Charlize reflects on the deep-seated animosity and broken relationship between her brother and their grandfather. He mocks her, asking if the money is for a hidden commoner lever. Charlize worries that backing down will expose her lies and lead to a forced annulment. Charlize offers her necklace as collateral, claiming its value will be revealed in the future. The delicate fabric of her gown glimmers amidst a sea of deep purple roses. The scene shifts as the story moves forward into a new, more complex chapter. Presenting the gem, Charlize insists that the necklace is a vital piece of collateral. The emperor orders Noah to take the necklace and attempt to use it as well. Noah asks if he must act like a beloved aide, earning a sharp scolding from His Majesty. The black-haired man tries to invoke his mother's name while clutching the unresponsive jewel. A heavy silence fills the room as the experiment fails to produce any magical results. He rejects the necklace, noting only she can use it and he'll solve his own problems. A pair of hands hold the glowing red pendant before returning it to the pink-haired lady. Charlize realizes she may have underestimated the complex dynamics and the situation at hand. Determined, she decides she cannot afford to retreat from this confrontation empty-handed. Charlize pleads with her brother for a favor, something she admits is entirely unprecedented. A tense silence hangs in the air as the emperor considers her desperate request. He agrees to consider helping her, but only if she accepts his specific terms. The emperor demands she abandon her family name and become a member of imperial royalty. A historical agreement prevents Charlize from joining the royalty unless she discards her noble title. Charlize considers the benefits of princess status but fears the resulting political mess. The black-haired man admits he hasn't fully considered the long-term consequences of his proposal. He encourages her to break off her engagement, but Charlize remains stubbornly defiant. They argue over her choice of fiancé, with Charlize telling him to mind his business. A visual snap sounds as sparks fly between the siblings during their heated exchange. He offers a final chance to reconsider his terms before the opportunity vanishes. The emperor notes that rumors of her return will soon lead to many social invitations. He commands her to cause a massive scene that will turn the entire empire upside down. A bright, suspicious smile across his face suggests he has a very specific plan in mind. Charlize questions why he wants her to cause trouble when that behavior previously got her exiled. The emperor prepares to reveal the simple, self-serving reason behind his unusual request. He explains that her public scandals will serve as a distraction to hide his own madness. He offers funds if she helps silence rumors and assist during his future outbursts. Charlize weighs her ruined reputation against her immediate and desperate need for the money. She concludes that her social standing is already at rock bottom, making the deal acceptable. A cheerful "that's the spirit" echoes as the brothers celebrates their new alliance. A devious smirk plays on the lady's lips as she prepares to state her own conditions. Charlize reminds her brother that his sanity is now entirely dependent on her cooperation. She warns him that any further disrespect might lead her to withdraw her assistance. Moonlight bathes the tall spires of the castle as the meeting finally concludes. A magical blue portal opens, allowing Charlize and Noah to depart the imperial grounds. Noah bows deeply, offering a sincere apology for his initial rudeness toward the lady. Charlize accepts his apology, noting he was simply worried about the safety of his emperor. She comments on the emperor's good fortune in having such a loyal and dedicated knight. Charlize asks the blue-haired knight to be ready to assist her in the future. Charlize beams radiantly while surrounded by a lush arrangement of blooming white lilies. A close-up shows Noah looking away with a thoughtful, slightly flushed expression on his face. He declares that he will fulfill her wishes if that is what the lady truly desires. Glowing blue particles drift through a dark, hazy sky as the magical transition occurs. A quick rhythmic tapping sounds as the emperor commands the person at the door to enter. Noah informs the emperor he has returned after safely escorting the lady back to her home. Noah asks why His Majesty decided to make such an unusual proposal to the lady today. The blue-haired man asks the emperor to refrain from using such low-class and disrespectful language. Gazing into the distance, the emperor asks if his knight thinks the lady is beautiful too. The emperor claims that as a sister, Charlize deserves a decent husband from the imperial family. He vows that he cannot allow her to remain with the filthy Elsbite family any longer. Noah asks if the duke isn't her family too, questioning if he's forcing her to quit. The emperor recalls how the duke abandoned her during her exile, viewing her only as merchandise. He predicts the duke will soon abandon Charlize or find a new use for her scandals. A portrait-like scene appears as the emperor expresses his desire to make her an imperial princess. Noah defends Duke Limit's innocence while the emperor threatens to dispose of the shriveled-up man. A sharp bang sounds as the emperor rages about the man daring to reject his sister. A loud, angry shout echoes as the emperor questions if no competent men remain in the empire. The silver-haired Duke Lamut looks up with a start, confused by an unexpected sound or thought. He tells his aide it was nothing and commands the man to continue with the report. The aide reports that Charlize paid the full amount for the territory's urgent flood recovery efforts. The silver-haired man is confused by the formal title, while his aide confirms her surprising behavior. The aide explains that the lady claimed she did not perform the deed for any reward. A subtle, sidelong glance passes between the Duke and his aide as they process the news. The silver-haired man reflects on the fact that Charlize is not seeking any financial compensation. The aide mentions rumors of her return and worries that turning her away seems ungrateful now. A quiet silence falls as the Duke remains deep in thought while clutching a white quill. A guard stands firm at the gates, informing Charlize that she is not permitted to enter. Charlize realizes the Duke hasn't authorized her visit and notes this is exactly what she expected. A maid walks through the sunny garden carrying a tray with a single cup of tea. A light clink sounds as the maid serves the lady the specific tea that she likes. The maid finds the rejection cruel, but Charlize admits she didn't announce her visit in advance. Charlize sips her tea while noting that her lack of notice doesn't change the rejection. Leaning on her hand, Charlize admits she had hoped things might be slightly different this time. A silver-haired girl peeks cautiously from behind a large tree trunk at the pink-haired lady. A soft rustle sounds as Charlize turns her head to see who is hiding nearby. The silver-haired girl shyly greets the lady, who recognizes her as the young Lady Arya. Charlize welcomes the girl warmly, telling her it is good to see her and inviting her over. Arya nervously apologizes for her presence, but Charlize asks if she has done something wrong. Fidgeting with her hands, Arya apologizes for her brother's misunderstanding and asks if Charlize is hurt. Charlize assures her she is sturdy and fine, inviting the girl to have a seat nearby. Arya explains the knight's rejection was due to her brother's absence and a guest's arrival. A quick clack sounds as Arya is impressed that the lady likes her favorite Kasana tea. A sharp tap sounds as Charlize ponders the identity of the important guest mentioned by Arya. Arya asks what Charlize is doing, and the lady explains she is simply enjoying the garden. A sudden movement sounds as Charlize springs up from her seat while talking with the young gal. Arya admits she grew the flowers herself, and Charlize kindly reassures the flustered young girl. Blushing, Arya confesses her deep interest in crossbreeding flowers to create entirely new species. Watching the girl look toward the roses, Charlize notes that Arya seems genuinely happy right now. Arya beams with joy while surrounded by a golden halo and a field of yellow roses. A gentle, knowing smile touches the pink-haired lady's lips as she watches the young girl. Radiant in her dark gown, Charlize stands peacefully amidst a vibrant sea of blooming pink blossoms. Arya is overwhelmed with emotion, her face flushing a bright pink as her heart suddenly flutters. A sudden fit of coughing interrupts them, and Charlize suggests they end their meeting for now. Charlize gently pats Arya's back and offers a handkerchief while urging the girl to rest well. Arya clutches the cloth, touched by the kindness and wondering if she has found a friend. A blinding light of pure innocence radiates from the girl, leaving the pink-haired lady completely stunned. Charlize feels purified by Arya's warmth, but remains deeply troubled by memories of her past actions. The lady offers a gentle smile, inviting the silver-haired girl to address her simply as Charlize. Arya nods enthusiastically, her determination to be friends mirrored by the pink-haired lady's amused expression. The sound of frantic, rhythmic footsteps echoes as a maid rushes toward them with a message. Breathlessly, the maid reports that a massive crowd of residents has gathered at the estate's gate. Charlize approaches the gate as the sounds of a murmuring crowd grow louder in the distance. Residents plead with the guard, expressing their desperate desire to personally thank the lady who helped. The crowd recognizes the pink-haired lady, calling out for Lady Allsbite and expressing their deep gratitude. A small boy spots her and cheers excitedly, pointing her out to his mother with joy. The residents erupt in cheers for the lady, surprising Charlize with their overwhelming display of affection. They offer baskets of fresh fruit, insisting she accept their humble gifts as thanks for her aid. Charlize is taken aback by their kindness, but a sudden command to wait halts the commotion. Askin appears amidst falling petals, his cool blue gaze scanning the scene with a serious expression. The blue-haired man instructs the citizens to leave their gifts for the knights and disperse peacefully. Worried about Arya's pale complexion, Askin tells her to return to her room and see a doctor. He apologizes for the chaos and invites Charlize to his office to discuss their remaining business. A heavy silence falls between them as they share a tense and lingering look in the hallway. Askin looks down with a somber expression, seemingly lost in his own complicated thoughts and feelings. The pair walks together through the quiet estate, the atmosphere between them filled with unspoken tension. Charlize lets out a soft sound of confusion, her attention caught by something unexpected in his manner. Sitting in his grand office, Charlize reflects on how much Askin has softened since their last meeting. She feels conflicted, acknowledging his past suffering while still feeling mistreated by his current coldness. Charlize confirms she will repay the debt principal on time, surprising him with her formal approach. Askin questions her insistence on an annulment, noting that maintaining their engagement would resolve her debt. He expresses his gratitude for her relief efforts and acknowledges her surprisingly kind treatment of Arya. He reminds her of their painful history, which makes it difficult for him to trust her. Charlize reveals that her persistent presence was leading up to a completely new proposal for him. She asks if he wants a happy life for Arya, leaving Askin baffled by the question. The blue-haired man gestures with one finger as he listens intently to her unusual one-year proposal. Charlize suggests maintaining their engagement for exactly 1 year, allowing him to leave if he hates her. Askin stands in silent contemplation, the weight of her offer clearly pressing heavily upon his mind. He notes that even if he agrees, the debt remains, only changing hands to become hers. Charlize is shocked by his deep distrust, realizing the original lady's horrific behavior ruined her reputation. She decides to stop explaining herself for now, focusing instead on the logistics of her plan. Charlize demands he bring a magic contract to finalize their agreement without any further verbal arguments. A long silence hangs over the table as they both process the terms of their alliance. He recalls the original lady's obsessive behavior, giving unwanted gifts to manipulate him through fear. Askin once accepted those gifts only because she threatened to torment those he cared for, like Arya. He finds the current situation bizarre because this Charlize is making a choice-based proposal instead. As Charlize prepares to depart, Askin is caught off guard by her sudden and abrupt exit. She clarifies that her stay wasn't for the money, but strictly to deliver her engagement proposal. A deep blush creeps across Askin's face as he admits his busy schedule delayed their conversation. Charlize, with vibrant pink hair and a dark dress, prepares herself for the coming conversation. Charlize tells Askin he must be troubled, noting her proposal feels like keeping a perpetrator nearby. Despite the tension, Arya seems cheerful, leaving the pink-haired lady feeling slightly flustered and awkward. A warm and gentle smile spreads across Charlize's face during the quiet moment of reflection. The blue-haired man stares blankly, appearing completely stunned by the lady's unexpected and sudden honesty. Her hand suddenly clenches her gown with a quick, sharp tap sounding through the quiet room. Charlize struggles to lift a heavy bag of coins while Askin watches with a confused expression. Straining under the weight, Charlize realizes that fantasy gold coins are much heavier than she expected. Askin asks why she didn't call a servant, while Charlize begins to make her formal exit. The scene shifts to a simplified, distant view of the pair finishing their business in the office. Charlize laughs off the tension, even though she realizes Askin still deeply distrusts her every word. A tall servant in formal attire opens the grand doors to the office with a clap. Charlize says her servant has arrived and tells Askin not to forget her proposal before leaving. As she departs, Charlize calls him handsome, leaving the blue-haired man blushing and completely at a loss. Charlize playfully notes that his beauty rivals her own while her servant prepares to carry the coins. Delicate yellow blossoms sparkle in the sunlight, signaling a shift in the afternoon's peaceful atmosphere. Charlize stands by her carriage at the estate gates, surrounded by guards and her traveling luggage. A maid rushes forward with a start, frantically calling out to the lady before she can depart. Surprised by the sudden commotion, Charlize turns and asks the group what is happening at the gate. 3 young children run toward her with rhythmic footsteps, carrying small handfuls of freshly picked fruit. They present a handful of bright red raspberries, explaining they waited to offer her a gift. The young blonde girl beams with pure joy, proudly stating she picked them with her sister. Charlize reaches out toward the small gift, touched by the children's simple and honest display of gratitude. A soft nom sounds as Charlize eats a berry, shocking the guards and maid with her behavior. She praises the berry's taste, insisting she cannot simply accept such a delicious gift for free. With a light jingle, Charlize places gold coins in the child's hand as payment for the fruit. Charlize muses that good intentions aren't always rewarded, but hopes this small lesson helps the children. The young blonde girl stands in awe, her eyes sparkling after the lady's unexpected and generous gesture. Reaching up, the pink-haired lady carefully unfastens a beautiful jeweled hair lip from her own hair. Charlize tells the girl to go as she gently pins the expensive jewelry onto her blonde hair. The children hug Charlize in thanks while a guard playfully scolds the little rascals for their boldness. With her business concluded, Charlize finally prepares to board her carriage and leave the estate behind. Looking out the window, Charlize wonders about the identity of a mysterious guest arriving in another carriage. She doesn't recognize the family crest, wondering if Charlize simply forgot it or never cared about them. A man steps out of the carriage with a confident stride, his shoe landing firmly on the grass. A handsome man with light brown hair and striking green eyes stands elegantly amidst the blooming roses. He smiles with a knowing expression, appearing perfectly composed as he gazes toward the pink-haired lady. Charlize watches him closely, her expression neutral as she processes the arrival of this attractive new stranger. Approaching her, the man calls her the Empire's greatest beauty, while Charlize is struck by his handsomeness. With a gentle touch, the brown-haired man leans down and kisses the pink-haired lady's hand in greeting. Charlize compares his looks to Askin, Roxadine, and Noah, noting they are all exceptionally handsome men. As they stand together, Charlize internally questions who exactly this overly familiar man could possibly be. A sharp clack sounds as Charlize pulls her hand away, questioning why he is acting so familiar. The man introduces himself as Ian Child, the eldest son and young count of the House Child. Charlize repeats his family name in confusion, trying to place where she has heard it before. She recalls a memory of an older pink-haired man promising her an engagement to House Child later. Charlize realizes this was the specific candidate her grandfather had pre-selected for her next arranged engagement. Looking at Ian, the pink-haired lady suddenly understands that this man is intended to be her backup fiancé. The narrative reflects on how beautiful people are also objects to some, causing many to shed tears. A brilliant burst of light radiates through the sunset clouds, marking the end of a long day. Charlize reflects on the past, certain she must have troubled this mysterious man before. Ian Child smiles elegantly, his green eyes shimmering with a confident and knowing light. Charlize notes Ian's composure is vastly different from other men she has encountered before. The pink-haired lady looks distressed, realizing the original Charlize definitely tormented this handsome man. Ian maintains his gentlemanly posture as he finishes his unexpected greeting in the rose garden. Charlize bids the young count farewell, maintaining a polite but distant demeanor during their encounter. A series of clacks sounds as Ian watches the carriage depart with a silent gaze. The brown-haired man lowers his head, seemingly lost in thought amidst the quiet estate grounds. Ian smirks wickedly, musing that a poisoned apple is the perfect description for the lady. A servant arrives to collect the young count, signaling the end of his private musing. The scene shifts to the interior of a grand estate, illuminated by elegant, glowing chandeliers. Askin questions the count's absence, wondering if the man's father has fallen ill recently. Rhythmic footsteps echo as Ian explains his father's caution while asking if Askin has reached a decision. Askin reviews a scroll, noting the terms of their proposed deal remain exactly the same. Ian smiles pleasantly, reminding the Duke that he only needs to repay the loan's principal. Before proceeding, Askin pauses the discussion to ask one critical question regarding their sudden generosity. The blue-haired Duke bluntly asks why Housechild is so determined to offer the maid. Ian claims his family acts out of a sense of duty and a desire for justice. He argues that wasting Askin's immense talents due to unfair debt would be a national loss. Ian further explains that his family feels a deep, long-standing debt toward the Duke himself. He references the famous Yellow Road that Askin personally established through the wasteland years ago. A narrative flashback reveals the dangerous monsters Askin subjugated to create safe passage for merchants. At only 20 years old, Askin Lamut single-handedly secured the Empire's vital western trade routes. Ian studies the Duke, privately wondering if the man has had a secret change of heart. While willing to wait for an answer, Ian notes that his family is also quite busy. Askin promises to deliver a firm answer regarding the proposal within a single week's time. With a polite rustle, Ian bows, expressing his hope for a mutually beneficial resolution. The young count pauses mid-exit, remembering one final detail he wishes to share with Askin. Ian mentions how Charlize helped the local flood victims, causing Askin to react with visible surprise. He describes how the grateful residents gathered local specialties to thank the pink-haired lady personally. Noting Askin's likely fatigue, the brown-haired man politely takes his leave for the night. A soft click sounds as Askin stands alone in his dimly lit grand office. A light tap sounds as the blue-haired Duke walks through the quiet hallway. Ian reflects on Askin's conflicted expression, suspecting the pair's relationship is better than he imagined. With a silent smirk, Ian identifies their potential closeness as a problem that needs monitoring. Surrounded by dark floral patterns, Ian's curiosity grows as he contemplates the lady's changing reputation. Bright sunlight streams through the window as Charlize remains buried under her covers the next morning. A faint sigh sounds as the pink-haired lady struggles with a sudden painful ailment. She lets out a soft groan as the worried maid checks on her current situation. She cries out with a loud wah, lamely lamenting her stomachache from a few berries. With a sharp rustle and a groan, Charlize expresses her deep hatred for being in pain. She lets out a weak ugh as the maid offers medicine for her quick recovery. He lets out a soft gulp while the maid encourages Charlize to get some sleep. Time passes in a dark blur as the lady rests, trying to recover from her illness. The freckled maid gently wakes Charlize later, calling out to her as she begins to stir. With a sleepy rustle, Charlize listens as the maid insists there is something she must see. The maid's expression turns serious as she reports that the knights have brought several children. Charlize repeats the word in confusion, her mind still foggy from the medicine and her nap. A series of knock sounds before the door opens with a bang as the knights enter. Footsteps approach as the children tremble, while Charlize recognizes them as the ones who gave fruit. The black-haired knights present the captured children, demanding Charlize issue a punishment for her stomachache. Charlize internally questions the situation, suspecting the knights are using the children to shield themselves. The weary sigh escapes Charlize as she stares at the knights, her frustration mounting visibly. Charlize instructs Susan to take the children to the drawing room and provide them with snacks. The knights react with sheer bewilderment as the freckled maid leads the trembling children away. Charlize covers her eyes in annoyance as the door closes, leaving her alone with the knights. A heavy silence fills the room after the door clicks shut, emphasizing the lady's brewing irritation. Facing the startled knights, Charlize wonders when she ever gave them such a ridiculous, unprompted command. Turning toward them with a dark aura, Charlize furiously asks when she ordered them to bring her brats. Dark shadows and thorns manifest behind Charlize, reflecting the dangerous shift in her current temperament. The knights stand stiffly before Charlize, realizing they have severely misjudged her reaction to the children. One knight nervously asks why she hasn't answered, his confusion growing as her silence lingers. Charlize looms over them with glowing red eyes, coldly asking if her simple question was too difficult. A knight stammers about the raspberries, but Charlize cuts him off to focus on her missing order. Charlize points a finger at the knight's chest, demanding to know if she actually authorized this capture. The knight claims they were only trying to cheer her up, prompting Charlize to order him shit. Charlize glowers at the man, making it clear she never asked for his personal thoughts or opinions. While she admits her bad mood, Charlize reflects that their treatment of the children truly enraged her. The two black-haired knights look down in shame and fear, unable to withstand the lady's intense gaze. A moment of quiet tension follows as Charlize stares at her subordinates with a cold, unyielding expression. Charlize mentions how her grandfather would hate their insubordination, dismissing their frantic apologies without a second thought. With a final, icy command, the pink-haired lady tells the disgraced knights to get out immediately. As they flee, Charlize realizes these knights aren't truly her people, but spies loyal to her grandfather. Standing alone by the grand doors, the narrative reflects on how isolated Charlize has truly been. In the drawing room, the two children sit nervously on a sofa surrounded by expensive tea and snacks. The children huddled together in fear, terrified of the mansion and the lady they were brought to. Charlize enters the room, now wearing a dark blue gown, and gazes at the two small guests. The brown-haired boy stammers in fear while Charlize looks at them with a silent, questioning expression. The boy tearfully explains that the knights threatened to keep them from their parents unless they behaved. Susan listens from behind as the boy details the cruel ultimatum given to them by the knights. Charlize is internally livid, wishing she had struck the knights before they were allowed to leave. Sitting across from them, Charlize looks at the crying boy, her anger toward the knights still simmering. Charlize whispers to Susan, directing the maid to retrieve 2 specific items from a nearby drawer. Susan departs while Charlize reassures the children she has no intention of tormenting them right now. The boy tries to stifle his sobs with a soft gasp, still unsure of the lady's intentions. Charlize reaches out and carefully opens a small ornate jewelry box she is holding in her hands. Golden butterflies and light fill the room as Charlize promises to give them gifts if they stop crying. Smiling gently, Charlize presents the glowing box to the children, its contents sparkling with a magical radiance. The children wipe their eyes as Charlize watches them, her expression softening into a rare, kind smile. Susan presents the boxes to the children, who stare at the treasures with wide, amazed eyes. The blonde girl holds the golden box in awe, her earlier fear completely replaced by pure wonderment. Observing the scene, Charlize decides she should also prepare a reward for her loyal maid, Susan. Charlize dismisses the girl, claiming she is tired and that the conversation has reached its natural conclusion. Charlize instructs Susan to take the children back safely, and the maid bows in obedient agreement. Susan informs Charlize that her grandfather is currently looking for her, surprising the pink-haired ladies. Charlize wonders if the older man's sudden summons is related to her recent business dealings. Voices echo through the grand estate as people question the meaning of a sudden, mysterious gathering. With a triumphant flourish, Charlize reveals a massive chest overflowing with gold coins to her audience. The older pink-haired man hums thoughtfully as he inspects the vast wealth Charlize has brought him. Charlize looks on, noting that she secured the massive sum of money from her own brother. The older pink-haired man leans over his desk, his eyes widening in shock at the documents. Looking up with a stern expression, he announces that a banquet for the goddess's blessing is approaching. He warns Charlize to stay on her best behavior and avoid acting rashly during the palace event. Her black-haired brother smirks, claiming he has prior engagements and needs to earn his keep for once. A firm hand rests on a chest of gold coins as the banquet plans continue to unfold. He declares his plan to announce her marriage to Duke Lamut, leaving Charlize completely frozen in horror. Charlize asks if Askin agreed, but he dismisses her, stating his debtor must follow every single command. She questions what happens if Askin pays his debt, but he claims the Duke never can. He sneers that Askin is permanently burdened by a useless, sickly person who prevents him from paying. Clenching his fist, the man orders Charlize to win the Duke's heart while she still has time. He mocks her for pathetically chasing the Duke while Charlize stares at the gold in silent contemplation. Amidst a flurry of pink flowers, Charlize calmly closes her eyes and accepts her grandfather's harsh instructions. A soft, hazy transition shows the fading light filtering through the trees of the grand estate gardens. Night falls over the magnificent towers of the mansion as the scene shifts to the ladies' quarters. Charlize collapses face down onto her bed, crying out in despair that she is in massive trouble now. Fearing Askin will kill her like in the original story, she is interrupted by a palace guest's arrival. A sharp talk sounds as a mysterious hooded figure stands silhouetted against the brightly lit doorway. The guest reaches up with a steady hand to pull back the heavy hood of their cloak. Charlize looks on with wide eyes and a look of pure shock at her unexpected late-night visitor. The hood falls away to reveal the calm, focused face of the blue-haired knight, Noah. Noah stands surrounded by a gentle floral aura, looking remarkably serene despite the urgency of the hour. Bowing deeply with a hand over his heart, the blue-haired knight offers a formal greeting to the lady. Irritated, Charlize asks if she is truly required to leave just because her brother has summoned her. Noah looks sheepish and lets out an awkward oops, clearly caught between the lady and the prince. A long, weary ha escapes her as she decides not to take her anger out on the knight. Giving in to the summons, Charlize looks at Noah and tells him to lead the way. A bright smile lights up Noah's face as he stands amidst a backdrop of blooming yellow roses. The sun sets behind the pointed spires of the royal palace, casting a warm glow over the courtyard. Expensive fabrics and jewelry boxes are laid out, signifying the start of the ladies' banquet preparations. Her brother lounges regally on a sofa. greeting her with a smirk as she notes how handsome he is. Charlize stands stiffly with a shocked expression while Noah remains dutifully by her side in the background. He asks why she is late, but she explains she traveled by carriage instead of using Noah's magic. Crossing her arms defiantly, Charlize demands to know exactly why she was called to the palace. He reveals he brought her there specifically to have her imperial banquet dress designed by a professional. A blonde woman introduces herself as Babesh, the exclusive designer for the imperial court, surprising the lady. Charlize questions the need for an imperial designer, but her brother tells her to shut up and measure. He warns her that if she refuses to listen, she must pay back her debt to him immediately. As she follows the maids, Charlize regrets borrowing money while her brother nags about her usual poor fashion. Charlize accidentally drops her honorifics, prompting a correction from her brother about respecting his royal title. He explains that her usual choice of revealing clothing makes other noblemen's eyes roll back in their heads. Sighing, she asks if he wants a scene or not, and he firmly tells her to cause one. Charlize suggests that skipping the banquet entirely would be a much bigger incident for the social circles. The pink-haired lady stares off into space while a maid prepares the measuring tape behind her. The maid politely asks the lady to raise her arm so she can accurately take her measurements. A flashback shows a young girl crying because she caught a cold while searching for a lost hair clip. Charlize suddenly reaches out and places a hand on the maid's head, noticing something familiar. With a piercing gaze, Charlize sternly asks the maid exactly where she obtained that specific blue hair clip. A dark-haired knight nervously claims he is dating the maid and gave her the clip as a gift. Charlize holds the clip, reminding him she caught him earlier, and demands the truth about her property. The knight bows in shame, admitting he stole the clip she threw away to give to his lover. The pink-haired lady stares forward with a cold, determined gaze amidst the palace splendor. Her black-haired brother smirks regally while instructing her to earn her keep during her stay. Reflection reveals her internal calculation, realizing the previous Charlize would have been easily fooled by such extravagant claims. As a blur of motion passes her, the pink-haired lady declares she is not that version of herself. A sudden, sharp impact sound echoes as she reflects on how much the man looked down on her. Memories resurface of a child sick with a cold, suffering because of this man's insatiable and cruel greed. With her eyes glowing a sharp red, she asks if he is truly treating her like a fool. The dark-haired knight, Martin, pleads for mercy, blaming a woman named Labella for forcing him into theft. A flashback shows the maid questioning how Martin could afford such jewelry on his meager servant salary. Martin scoffs that he took the item because the lady was simply throwing it away to common beggars. Charlize looks on impassively while her brother drinks tea, noting Martin's assumptions about her stupidity are wrong. A quick sounds as the maid begs for the chance to explain her side of the story. Bowing deeply, she swears she never coveted the lady's belongings, only receiving the clip from that despicable scoundrel. A rhythmic tuk-guk sounds as Charlize considers the maid's confession with a skeptical, thoughtful expression. Surrounded by a floral aura, Charlize tells the maid to deal with the traitorous knight however she pleases. A rough pwak sounds as Charlize suddenly grabs the maid's collar, her expression turning incredibly dark and intense. Leaning in close, she whispers a chilling warning that the maid must handle it to her satisfaction. Martin nervously prepares himself to dodge, hoping to minimize the impact of the impending physical punishment. A heavy kung sounds as a terrifying pressure overwhelms him, leaving the knight completely frozen in pure shock. His body paralyzed by an overwhelming bloodlust, the knight can only stare in horror at the brother. A series of sharp slaps and cries of pain ring out as the knight is punished severely. The maid unleashes her fury on Martin, while the brother reflects on how human nature never truly changes. Sipping his tea, the black-haired man notes he expects a grand performance at the upcoming palace banquet. A light glow surrounds Charlize as she eats, while her brother plots for her to cause a scene. He repeats his expectation for the banquet, asking if she truly enjoys the sweets she is currently eating. His internal thoughts reveal a plan to retrieve her once she is kicked out of the social circles. A series of dull thuds sound in the background as the maid continues beating the knight near Charlize. A loud pwak and pak sound as the maid delivers a series of stinging blows to Martin's face. Another sharp chuck echoes through the room as the physical confrontation between the two servants reaches its peak. Chewing thoughtfully, Charlize worries that her recent actions will only serve to spread more negative rumors about her. She realizes she is in massive trouble as the weight of the social consequences begins to sink in. Gossip travels through the territory, but surprisingly, people praise the lady for helping flood victims and rewarding children. The rumors claim she is a merciful lady for punishing the wicked knight who stole from a child. Commoners gather and cheer for her, declaring that such a noble lady should be the mistress of their land. Askin looks up in disbelief, questioning if the positive rumors spreading about Charlize are actually true. His subordinate confirms the news, asking the Duke what their next course of action should be regarding the situation. A firm quack sounds as the blue-haired man clenches his fist, ordering the rumors to be stopped immediately. He explains that an annulment is planned, and rumors of her becoming mistress would only cause her more trouble. A soft glow illuminates the memory of a voice claiming that the lady is not a bad person. Sitting at a tea table, Arya admits she feels ashamed for having judged Charlize so poorly in the past. Askin realizes with frustration that even Arya has been charmed by the pink-haired lady's recent mysterious actions. The scene shifts as the Duke remains deep in thought while looking at the empty seat before him. A voice proposes a deal to maintain the engagement for just one more year, despite the previous tension. Charlize, now in a dark dress, signals for silence with a mysterious and knowing look on her face. She demands a magic contract, stating she will bring it herself to ensure the terms are strictly followed. The terms of the proposal are laid out, offering a conditional agreement between the Duke and the lady. A soft smile touches Charlize's lips as she looks at the man across from her with newfound confidence. The subordinate notes the Duke is being tempted by her proposal, despite his initial resolve to end things. A transitional silence follows the heavy discussion, leaving the atmosphere thick with unspoken tension and uncertainty. A sharp "cook" sounds as the Duke clenches his jaw, struggling against the influence of her surprising offer. Askin stands up and orders his subordinate, Ben, to prepare the carriage immediately. His footsteps echo as he thinks that even if Arya is right, he must proceed. Askin puts on his ornate cloak, resolved that whatever has already been done is final. The morning sun shines over the estate garden while birds sing with a cheerful cheep. Charlize slams her head onto the garden table, letting out a frustrated cry of "damn it." The pink-haired lady stares dejectedly at a small white flower resting on the table. Night falls over the grand mansion as a blue carriage comes to a halt outside. Noah asks Charlize if she is all right, but she dismisses him with a cold response. Charlize looks at the blue-haired knight, skeptically asking if there is actually anything he can do. The blue-haired man remains calm, his expression unreadable as he stands before the lady. Noah notices her fatigue and extends a hand, asking to escort her home personally. Charlize reflects that Noah was never this polite in the original story, even during her tantrums. She wonders if his kindness stems from her ability to control the madness of Roxadine. Charlize tells him to leave, calling him annoying, leaving the knight looking quite surprised. A rustle sounds as Charlize sits alone, reminding herself that those thoughts are not important. Rhythmic footsteps sound as a man with light-colored hair approaches Charlize from behind. Ian Child smiles, noting he finally found his chance, as Charlize asks why he is there. Ian claims he has done nothing wrong, while Charlize admits her discomfort due to his secrecy. A click sounds as Ian presents a bottle of fine wine from the Kingdom of Adet. Ian notices Charlize's lukewarm reaction, questioning if the rumors about her love for alcohol were false. Ian asks if she dislikes the wine, prompting Charlize to bluntly demand he hand it over. A slippery sound follows as Charlize reaches out to take the bottle from Ian's hand. The bottle slips from her grasp, falling toward the ground in a blur of red wine. A loud crash echoes as the bottle shatters, shocking both Charlize and the brown-haired man. A heavy silence follows the accident as the two stare down at the wasted wine. Ian looks down at the mess with a wounded expression, appearing stunned by the sudden turn. A faint smile returns to Ian's face as he quickly recovers his composure. Ian offers a polite apology, catching Charlize off guard with his sudden lack of anger. He laughs off the accident, suggesting the wine simply wasn't good enough for such a connoisseur. Ian promises to bring a proper wine next time, admitting his own growing curiosity. He extends another invitation, asking if Charlize will agree to drink with him in the future. A splash sounds as the scene shifts while Ian reflects on how intrigued he is beginning. Charlize watches him walk away, internally questioning what could possibly be wrong with the man. She stares intensely, wondering if his persistent desire to see her stems from a deep grudge. A quick tap sounds as a maid's feet rush across the floor, calling for her lady. The maid urgently informs Charlize that she has an unexpected guest waiting for her. Askin reaches up to adjust his earring, his expression serious as he prepares to meet Charlize. The blue-haired Duke stands tall among blooming flowers, having arrived to see the pink-haired lady.